years. What the hell is wrong with you? What the hell is wrong with you?
Hey, good evening, everybody. Welcome to another Ryno's Rants. We are officially in the absolute dead part of the NFL season, or off season. Not a whole lot going on as far as on the field type stuff anyway. Was a couple of off field things that kind of came up over the last few days. So kind of figured we would talk about that tonight a little bit. And you guys, anything you want to talk about, bring it up in the comments section, and we will discuss as we go along with this as well. So with that, why don't we get started? As shown on the intro, Vikings offensive tackle Oli Udoh kind of had himself a bad month of May, the way it sounds. Got pulled over not once, not twice, but 3 times for various sorts of moving violations with a motor vehicle. First of which was on May 4th in St. Paul. He got pulled over for doing 97 in a 55-mile-an-hour speed zone. It's hey, Dan, Doc, good evening. 97 and a 55 going through the cities. I mean, a lot of people do that on that 494, 694 loop, but apparently, not to be outdone with that, 2 days later, Udoh got cited for reckless driving because he was allegedly weaving in and out of traffic at a high speed and driving in the carpool lane with no passenger. So, I don't know where he was going in such a hurry, but seems to be a kind of a ongoing theme here. And then the third violation in the month of May was on May 25th. He got pulled over for doing 64 and a 55, which, let's be honest, most of us do 64 and a 55 on a fairly regular basis. All depends on how much of a stickler the police want to be. Might be just me, but rolling slow, driving sucks. Just want to make it as laid back as possible. That's fair, Doc. I mean, fairness in advertising, I got a little bit of a lead foot. I've had to make a conscious effort the last few years to kind of watch my speed a little bit more, just for the simple fact I don't really care to be giving the state or the county or whoever extra money for speeding tickets all the time. Worthless opinion. Good evening. Welcome to the show. But apparently, like I said, Oli Udoh must have been a busy month for him. Hey, Ray, how's it going? Of course, we do remember this is not Udoh's only run-ins with the law. I remember back in October, I believe it was during the bye week when Udoh got arrested in a nightclub down in Miami for disorderly conduct. I believe he was trying to get some woman's phone number and she wouldn't give it to him, and he followed her into the women's restroom and whatever all else. And then there was a resisting arrest afterwards. Thomas, is Oli the fastest player on the roster? I love that. I mean, it's not the Corin Robinson doing 120 something or whatever he was doing from Minneapolis down to Mankato for training camp back in the day. I forget what it was, but I want to say it was close to like 110, 120 miles an hour he was doing back then. And it's, but not, 97 and a 55. I mean, that's that's significantly over the speed limit. So I don't know. Udo, he redeemed himself, I think, a fair amount last year with, playing tackle again when Brian O'Neill went out. And of course, we got pretty thin at the position. But, and let's be honest, traffic violations aren't anything that's going to get a guy cut over. Doc, grew up in a small town. My daughter and a few of my friends grew up in the Bay Area. You can really tell the different driving styles. Yeah, that's true. Well, even living in Fargo here where I'm at now, it is amazing how many people cannot drive in this town. Start looking around if you live in an apartment complex or something like that, or even just driving up and down the streets nowadays. Look at how many vehicles are missing at least one corner of the, bumpers front or rear, or held together with duct tape and whatever all else. It's people just, I don't know if they're just not paying attention anymore. They're too preoccupied with texting or putting on makeup, shaving, eating a sandwich, whatever, driving down the road, or what the deal is. But, and plus two, some of it maybe is that all the cars nowadays are all made out of plastic. It's not like the old days where you had the steel bumpers and everything else where you could smack into something and not have too big of a problem. But yeah, I know, Doc, like I said too, or me, I grew up out in the country. So there's a lot of times we could, you could drive like a bat out of hell and you still wouldn't run into any traffic for several miles. So, kind of the difference in the style is definitely, but like I said, we're kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel for news stories this week, but Udo is probably better mind his P's and Q's for a little bit, just be on the safe side. Drewster, hey, long time no see, brother. How's the move and getting settled in going there in you left hippie world and now back into God's country type era? But so like I said, I'm not too concerned with driving violations as long as he's not getting into accidents and involved with other people, or if it's we're talking about Ole, of course. We're scraping. Yeah, that's for sure, Doc. This 3-week stretch here, 4-week stretch, whatever it is, between the end of mandatory mini camps and the start of training camps, unless something like this happens, there's really not a whole lot to talk about. So, it is what it is. We're just gonna power on through it. And like I said, any of you guys got anything you want to talk about tonight, just bring it up. We're gonna kind of do a free for all here and just take her as she goes, and we'll see where we end up. But the other, I'm not going to call it a bombshell, but debunking of a rumor, I guess, happened late last week when Adam Schefter was on Pat McAfee's show. How many tackles on the roster? This might help Lowe, last year's rookie. Thomas, I think right now there are 4. Of course, Brian O'Neill not cleared yet for to resume activities after partially tearing his Achilles. So Ole Udo and Blake Brandel are your 2 main backups. So there'd be 5. There's Ole Udo, there's Blake Brandel, O'Neill, Darisaw, Vidarian Lowe, and then a couple of undrafted rookies that we picked up too this year that are basically there to fill, camp bodies and whatnot. But we carried 4, I believe it was last year, Vidarian Lowe, being on the practice squad for most of it. So, like I said, speeding and stuff like that isn't going to get you thrown off the team unless it's razor thin between who you're keeping and who you're getting rid of. So, I mean, it could come into play, but I kind of doubt that it will. But anyway, getting back to Adam Schefter on Pat McAfee's show last week. Of course, we heard, a month or two ago about at the scouting combines, supposedly the San Francisco 49ers were talking to all kinds of teams, including the Vikings, about a potential Trey Lance trade. And Schefter came out and basically threw cold water on that rumored, saying there was no trade market for Trey Lance and the 49ers did not have any trade talks with other teams. Which is kind of surprising that there wasn't even discussions. I'm guessing there was still maybe a, hey, what if scenario over a bourbon and a cigar at one of the bars or something at night, but nothing official anyway, I guess. But the interesting thing that Schefter also put out there is, of course, if Brock Purdy is healthy, he is the starting quarterback. I think he earned it last year with how he played. But the more interesting part of that is that right now, Sam Darnold is the number 2 quarterback over Trey Lance. So right now, the guy they gave up multiple draft picks to go get 2 years ago is now 3rd on the depth chart. And I don't know if they've decided that Lance is not going to pan out or what the deal is there. He's going to be given the opportunity to compete with Darnold in training camp, but it's an interesting situation there. Do they keep 3 quarterbacks and or do they cut bait on a guy that they took 3rd overall 2 years ago? It would be a significant fall from grace if that was the case. But if they do decide to just cut loose, then he's going to be free to sign with any team out there, of course. But I just thought it was kind of interesting that we heard all this stuff about, they were going, of course you have the every spring trade market. Kirk Cousins going to San Francisco. Kirk Cousins is going to San Francisco. Then it was going to be Kirk Cousins for Trey Lance and additional draft picks and blah, 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 back and forth. Apparently none of that happened, or nothing that anybody's admitting to anyway. And can't cut bait on Lance and make the front office look stupid. Yeah, I would agree on that, Doc. They gave up, three number 1 picks and some other assorted stuff. Hey, Skull for Life, good evening. I guess you got to give them some kudos for if they do cut bait on him, realizing that they did make a mistake, but just cutting bait on and letting him go makes absolutely 0 sense. You could get something for him if you traded him, or you just keep him on the roster on until his rookie deal is up as a backup. But there again, if you're going to keep 3 quarterbacks, you do that at the expense of another position, wherever that may be. That's one thing that's going to be very interesting, I think, this year. Speaking of roster spots, with this, that what was old is now new again rule, where the teams can have a 3rd quarterback, basically an emergency quarterback, on the game day roster without him taking up a roster spot. It's going to be interesting to see if more teams go back to carrying 3 quarterbacks again like they used to, or are they going to have somebody that they're just going to put on the practice squad and pull up, and just have him active for game days? I don't know what the deal is. That's a good question, Doc. Doc's wondering what do we feel Trey Lance's trade value is? The rumored price or value, I guess, that was, put out earlier would be a 3rd round pick. I would think you could get a 3rd rounder for him. I mean, he was a 3rd overall pick, and he hasn't had a chance to prove to anybody other than Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch whether he can or whether he cannot play, because we've seen him play for a grand total of about 5 games in 2 years. So there would ultimately be some team that would think that they could make use out of him, change of scenery type thing, and we can do something with him that Kyle Shanahan couldn't, and this, that, and the other thing. I could maybe see somebody that employs more of that running style, like a Lamar, like the Ravens with Lamar Jackson, even the Bears with Justin Fields. Somebody kind of in that same mold of a quarterback of what they already have. Because Trey Lance is a hell of a runner. Always was when he was in college, everything else like that. Guy's got a good arm, but he's very raw. He played 12 games in college. That's it, 12. So Skull for Life, Darnold list over Lance. Yep, we mentioned that just before you hopped on here, that right now, when training camp opens in San Francisco, Sam Darnold is the number 2 quarterback. He'll get run with the ones to begin with, I guess, because Brock Purdy is not going to be ready to go right away, I don't think. But they said Darnold and Lance will compete for the number 2 job. 3rd doesn't seem like too much to roll the dice. I don't think it is, Doc. I'm a little biased because, of course, Trey Lance is an NDSU alum, but that part of it aside, the kid's got talent. He's a hell of an athlete, but translating that into being a successful NFL quarterback, sometimes it's going to take a while, especially somebody, that's as raw as he is, that's only played, like I said, 12 games. So by now, and even through college and through his NFL career so far, after 2 years in the NFL, he still has not played a total of 20 games yet. So Josh, if the price is right, I'd take a flyer on him. I wouldn't be opposed to it either. I mean, at this point in time, if you could get him for 3rd to 4th round, that turns into a conditional 3rd if he makes a team and plays X number of snaps or something like that. 2 years ago, we were willing to mortgage our future for him. Now a 3rd seems like a good deal. Yeah, like I said, for a 3rd round pick, I'd take a flyer on him just to see if O'Connell could do anything with him. You'd have him on a cheap deal for at least 2 more years, possibly. And if he turns out in those 2 years, then you could exercise a 5th-year option. But the Purdy magic will fade in 2023. I don't necessarily disagree with you, Drew. It's going to be interesting when now that everybody's got tape on him and they've had an off season to look at this kind of stuff. I mean, is he the real deal, or was that all smoke and mirrors last year, and the fact that Kyle Shanahan is an offensive genius? I don't know. I can't answer that. I was sitting there waiting for that Purdy magic to fade for most of the season, to be honest with you, because I didn't expect him to have the season that he did. Now, can he duplicate that? Now, granted, he's not going to be able to play. I would guess he's probably going to miss the first 5-6 weeks of the season. I mean, he basically had Tommy John surgery, or a variation thereof, on that arm in the NFC Championship game, which was 4 months ago. So, I mean, it would be an Adrian Peterson type recovery from his, he recovered from his ACL injury to come back and be ready to go for the start of the season. Lance from Marshall, Minnesota. Yep. He was one of those that University of Minnesota wanted him to come in, but they weren't going to bring him in as a quarterback. They had him marked as athlete. So they were going to, maybe find some place for him. NDSU was the only place that was willing to give him a scholarship to come in and play quarterback, which is why he went up there. And then, of course, the hype train hit, and he was still riding the coattails of when the string of Bison quarterbacks that were successful in FCS. But again, none of them have really showed out in the NFL yet. Carson Wentz started out like gangbusters, and then he's completely fallen off the face of the planet and is not even on a team right now. So I think there was a little hype, which kind of surprising that the national media would create that much hype around a kid from an FCS school. But Lance would have served himself much better to stay in college one more year, I think. But, they credit to him. He was a third overall pick. He got, made himself a little money, even if he doesn't pan out. But I don't know. Personally, I would have stayed in school a year longer and gotten more experience. He would have been better suited and more ready to play in the NFL, I think, if he had. KOC could do a lot with Trey Lance, take a flyer. Yeah, I agree, Drew. If you could get him cheap, bring him in, see what you can do. If he doesn't pan out, you're not out anything. You're out a third, fourth round pick. Big deal. I mean, we blew higher draft picks on crappier players and that never turned out. So it would not hurt to see. I know the latest rumor, of course, was that there were a possibility of Danielle Hunter being traded to San Francisco and Trey Lance being part of the compensation package coming back. The whole Danielle Hunter situation, I was going to try to stay away from that tonight because we've talked about it exceedingly the last few weeks on this, but as it sits right now, it doesn't sound like they're any closer to getting a contract extension done. I heard rumors that the Vikings offered him more money for this year, but didn't want to extend out the contract. So I don't know what's going on there. I guess we'll find out in whether or not he shows up for training camp in a couple of weeks. Doc, do you think playing in your hometown or close makes that big of a difference? Or is that just media storylines? I don't think it. I mean, sure. I mean, there's always something about growing up and playing for the team that you cheered for when you were a kid. The whole Adam Thielen story, the CJ Hams of the world, that kind of stuff where you get to. I mean, playing for the team that you grew up cheering for, I think would be the creme de la creme and the top of the deal. But at the end of the day, the NFL is a business, and just getting to play in the NFL, no matter where it is something that very few people actually get to do. So, I mean, if you're going to play harder because you're playing for your hometown team than if you are playing for, say, your hometown team's hated rival, I think there's a problem there. Because if I'm an owner, a general manager, a coach, and you're not giving your all playing for my team, I don't care what team I'm running. If you're not giving your all because it isn't a team that you, quote unquote, liked or wanted to go to or whatever like that, that's a problem for me. Am I saying Trey Lance is doing that? No. By all accounts, I mean, Trey Lance has always played with a chip on his shoulder when he was in college because, people didn't believe in him. People aren't believing in him now. So I think that, taking a flyer on him, he would have something to prove, I think. And, at the very least, you maybe have him as a bridge while you look for your permanent solution. I don't know. Drew, go get Sean Mannion. I do not want to see Sean Mannion in a Vikings jersey again for as long as I live. I mean, good God, I have as many touchdown passes as Sean Mannion does. We closed the book on that chapter. We took the book, we threw it in the fire, burned it up, nothing left but ashes. And Mannion can go be a coach someplace. That's fine with me. Maybe he can go to Colorado and coach with Mike Zimmer because Zimmer seemed to love him. So, yeah, I don't know. Beyond that, I don't know. Anybody else got anything to talk about tonight? I'm a little short on information, but I guess we'll do a couple of programming notes. We're planning on having a Brunswick's Best this week. Lance will take a look at the players to wear number 13. So again, we got a couple, but check that out on Wednesday. We are not going to have a studio show again this week, just because of the circumstances, the holiday coming up, and Lance still dealing with his stuff. So we will not have a studio show this week. We do plan on Sean Mannion's got one. Sean Mannion's got one. Motivation adds something. I don't think draft experts could be wrong. Yeah, I mean he definitely would be motivated, I think, to prove himself. With everybody saying that he can't do it. But yeah, I don't know. Also, we won't have a Ryno's Rants next Monday, just due to the fact that it's 4th of July weekend, and I'm going to be at the lake, and I have crappy internet coverage down there, so I wouldn't be able to stream. So we will. There won't be a Ryno's Rant. Probably not a Brunswick's Best either next week. Just again because of the 4th of July holiday. But we are planning on having a studio show next Friday. So make sure you stay tuned for that, especially Minnesota. Very possible. But beyond that, unless you guys got anything else, that's all I've got for tonight. A little bit of a short show tonight, but like I said, we've hit that part of the season where there's not a whole lot going on. But I do want to thank all you guys for joining tonight. Skull for Life, Doc Proto, Jer, Drew, Skull for Life, Josh, Doc, Dan, anybody else that I missed out of the chat there. Worthless Opinion. Of course, the Filipino fan club that watches us every Monday night. Nonoy, Jen, Bibi, Alex, Wilma, the whole crew over there. Thank you guys for tuning in every week. And again, we'll have a Brunswick's Best on Wednesday, and then beyond that, we're off for the 4th of July weekend, and we'll be coming back at you next week. So with that, thank you guys all for joining us, and Skull Vikes will have a good rest of the week.